Okay, welcome into the shop, everybody. It's great to have y'all here. Now, I'll first off want to start by saying thanks to all the new subscribers who have rolled in over the last couple of weeks from Bourbon Moff's channel. Jason Hibbs came down through 2 or 3 weeks ago to visit me and take a look at my Argosy, the Airstream that I restored. And he featured me in one of his videos, which I'm very grateful for. Super nice guy. And thank you for y'all for coming over and subscribing. I've got his hat on. He gifted me with a hat. Really cool hat. It says, "Woodwork is good work." Can't argue with that. Cool hat. So head on over. If you guys didn't know that happened, go on over, watch his video. I'll link that in my description. Subscribe to his channel. He does some cool stuff, and he's restoring an Airstream. So for all of my Airstream followers that are still hanging on, you might want to go check that out. Now, a little bit about this channel real quick for the new people. We build handcrafted custom furniture in here. I run a business full-time. I'm not just a content creator, although a lot of people tell me I should be. I just really love building custom furniture. It's my passion, and I like to mix both the best I can. So that's what you're gonna get here. In this video, we're building a king-size bed out of walnut. Now, I'm not gonna focus in depth on the build of the bed. I've built a lot of beds on this channel, and I'll link some of those in the description as well if you want to deep dive into that. This is a focus on a really cool joint that is kind of like a miter double bridle joint, a joint I've never cut before. So we're gonna walk through how we do that and how we troubleshoot it. Should be fun. Let's start by opening up the CAD drawing and taking a look at this joint. So the first thing I want you to notice is the ends have a rabbet on them. So these are about 2.5 inch square parts, pretty big parts for a piece of furniture, and those ends are rabbeted to 2 inches. So the tenons are only 2 inches wide. The reason for this, there's two reasons. One is the jig we're gonna use to cut these big tenons the tooling can only cut 2 1/4. So we wanna give ourselves room to make that cut to be able to cut those tenons. Second reason is we're gonna run a dado all along the inside of these parts to capture the panel. And for that, we need to step up the tenons, or else we're gonna cut that dado into the tenons, have to stop it, chisel it out, have a weak point in our tenon there. It just doesn't work. You want to step your tenon up the 1/2 inch for your dado, so your dado can run all the way around. Now, on top of that dado, there's a second little dado that steps out and up to hold miter trim that's going to slide in and make a really clean transition look from the frame to the panel. You'll see that as we get into the video. Might be a little bit confusing, but I think as we do this, it's going to make sense, and you get to see us kind of figure this out. So we're going to start on the table saw with Robert cutting the rabbets. Okay, so like I said, we're cutting a rabbet on the end of these just to make that part a little bit smaller, to go from 2.5 to 2 inches, so we can cut it and we can put our dado in. This is fairly easily done using the dado stack on the table saw and a stop there on the fence, so you can register each part and get the exact same cut on all 4 parts, or no, I should say 1, 2, 3, all 6 parts. So one thing to share with these types of joints is we spend a considerable amount of time prepping for these. We make the joint in test parts. We probably spent 1.5 to 2 days figuring out the process. We'd do one, we'd say, well, that's not gonna work. We gotta do this first. At first, we weren't even cutting this rabbet. We were just cutting the part directly in and trying to make jigs. So what you're seeing is the process completely refined and figured out, so that when we get in and we cut our expensive parts, we know we've got it figured out, and we're not gonna make any mistakes, or at least try our hardest not to. Okay, so you can see me kind of in the background of the shop there setting up our Lee FMT mortising jig. This is a jig that I've used for years. I don't always use it to cut mortise and tenons, but in this particular application, it works really well. It's been a while since I've done this.
Yeah, I haven't seen you do it since I've been here.
Honestly, it's worth the cost just to have 2 people to like do a checklist.
Yeah.
Like, even if you're not doing anything right now, like at least you're checking what I'm doing.
I'm gonna check. I'm gonna make sure.
Because I don't want to miss something here, and I very well could.
Yeah. This is the top of the piece. This is the one we're cutting. We should have the one we're cutting over here.
And that's the thing. If I do screw up and you're checking it, it's not all my fault.
Thanks.
Some of the blame goes to you.
Yeah, no, you're right. Okay. This is the one we're cutting. This is how it's mounted. Do not cut the front.
Do not cut the front.
Don't cut the front.
Okay, so if you didn't catch the kind of deliberation there between Robert and I, there's a little bit of, Robert's never seen me do this. This is the downside of the Lee FMT jig, is you can't cut short parts. So, or I should say you cannot cut long parts. Anything over like 36 inches, you're gonna have trouble. So you have to mount it on a drill press, kind of angle it, step on a ladder. It all looks a little unsafe, but I've done this many times and I promise you it works just fine. So you get a close-up here of how this tooling is cutting, how it's working. Basically, you've got two pins in the base of the router that are going in guides and cutting exactly where you want to cut. You do a full plunge, full cut. This system, once you get comfortable with it, works really well, and it's super easy to do on a workbench when you're cutting shorter parts. But like I mentioned, on the longer parts, this is a pain. I don't do it this way very often. A lot of times we're going to use the old Oliver mortiser and a table saw, but when you have double mortise and tenons like this and you need real accurate fits, this little jig just does a great job of it.
How much do you want me to overcut it?
Like how much waste to leave, or?
Well, no, because we're like, do you want the blade to be just above that finger?
Yeah, yeah, because it doesn't matter how much you overcut that, does it?
Right, because we're gonna pare it back anyways.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, as long as you're not cutting into
The next one.
Exactly. So the way I cut this video, we've actually moved to the post here. So Robert's cutting the miter in the uprights of the bed. The parts you just saw me cut on the Lee FMT were actually the long horizontal pieces. They look a little bit different, but once we cut these miters, they're all gonna kind of match up and fit. So Robert's actually gonna cut that bottom part right off and cut a 45 on this. And so while he's cutting the miters, we kind of got a system going here. I'm finishing up all the tenons on here. So you get another shot here of how this looks, that spiral upcut bit coming through the part. A little bit sketchy, but I promise you it's all good. So that you can see here how the jig works. The whole top plate slid forward. I put my pins back into the guide, it all registers, and it cuts the next slot in the part. Okay, so here comes the really satisfying part. I'm gonna let this one ride and just kind of let you see it, but basically I've got a block clamped on at 45 and I'm using my chisel to pare it down. Now on a few of these I had to dial in that fit a little bit, so I've got this Lee Nielsen block plane here that I'm using to do that. Now this is a great opportunity for my Patreons. If you want to join on Patreon, you can learn a little bit more about woodworking and what we do. I want to talk a little bit about this Rabbit hand plane, why I love it, why it's a tool if you're a hand tool worker you should own. So go on my Patreon, you can subscribe onto that and learn more about this tool. So the test fit, this is the exciting part. Everything just worked perfectly and it's so satisfying. It was a lot of hours of work to get to this point. And I think it looks amazing, and I think it was worth every effort we put into it. I think it makes the bed really have this simple feel to it, but be super complex. And I love that about making furniture. Is like people don't realize how hard it really is. And this bed will last for a very long time. We're doing the assembly here. I use epoxy for this. A lot of times I'll cheat a little bit, use my Total Boat epoxy to fill any gaps if we have any, which, you know, you're bound to have some unless you're absolutely an amazing craftsman. So the epoxy does a great job of, as an adhesive, not only filling the gaps, making them aesthetically look better, but also still adding some structure and strength. Type on 2 or yellow glue, doesn't really have any filling capabilities, so you're not going to get any benefit from the adhesion if you have gaps there. Okay, so after it comes out of the clamps, we go back to the hand tools. I just use a hand plane, my Stanley 4.5, to level out all the surfaces, to clean up the joints. This is actually a really fun process for me. I enjoy doing this. I did the headboard here in the video and then kind of showed Robert the ropes and turned over the footboard to him and let him plane down all the parts on that footboard. Should also mention real quick that Robert's packing up a golf ball display case. We sell these and ship them all over the world. So if you're a golfer and you want to display your golf balls, I've got a beautiful golf ball display case on my website that you can order and have in about 2 to 3 weeks. So just throwing that out there as a quick plug. I shouldn't say 2 to 3 weeks, sorry. It'd be more like 4 to 5 weeks. Okay, so we walked through the joint. Now I want to share a little bit about how we did the miter trim, the transition piece from the frame down to the panel. Now, like I mentioned earlier in the video, at the beginning, all the panels are veneered. We've got book matches going from the headboard to the footboard, just kind of balances the bed, makes it look real nice. These are at a steep angle. We're not at 45, I don't know the exact angle, but it's a little bit steeper. And what we're going to do first is cut all this trim out on the table saw. It's a little bit tricky because we're cutting on the opposite side of the blade to do it. So Helps to have two guys doing that. Once we cut it out, it's inevitable that you're gonna have some burning on the part. Obviously off the saw, the finish is not good, so we're gonna make up a jig and throw these on the workbench, and just a few or five quick passes with a hand plane will make them look pretty. Okay, so real quick, you've seen the CAD file of this joint. Now here we are, we've got it all cut. This is a picture taken right before we assembled it. I didn't have great footage of this, but I want to explain and show you what's going on. The first thing I want you to see, obviously, is the dado we talked about. That's holding the panel. You can see that there. The next thing I want you to see is the dado above that, which steps in about 3/16 and leaves about 1/8 of wood all the way around. That allows us to slide that trim in underneath the frame. It gives us a really cool, clean transition, and allows us to have a nice point to that trim with a little reveal shadow line all the way around. The trick with that is you can't just miter it and slide it in. So what we're gonna have to do is cut our miters and then actually split a piece and then put it all together and put that piece back together and hide the joint. Okay, so the final step, as always, to put finish on. So we're using a water-based product here from a company called Target Coatings. No sponsorship from them. I just really like their products. I've been using them for about a year now. We'll shoot this sealer on, and then we'll sand it back with 320. Water-based products usually raise the grain, so you got to do some sanding. And then we'll put 2 to 3 coats of conversion varnish over that. It's a very durable finish that has a beautiful sheen to it. Real quick, I just want to say I'm very grateful for these clients. They've been working with me since I started my business. One of the first pieces I built from them about 10 years ago was a custom photo booth. So very thankful for them. They have over 10 pieces probably of mine in their home, and it's just a great feeling to know that people support my business in that way. So I've also built a great relationship with them and their family over the years. A few quick stats on this build. We spent about $1,100 in walnut, about $450 in veneers for the footboard and headboard, about $50 to $60 in hardware. The amount of labor we have in this bed is roughly 70 hours. So in total, if you wanted to order this bed, it would cost you around $8,500. Now, I know that seems expensive, but if you put it into perspective, let's say this was my bed and I lived another 40 years. That's 14,400 nights of sleep on this bed. It's about 69 cents a night to sleep on this bed. Furthermore, this bed will outlast my life and the client's life, so I'm sure their kids are gonna get it and they can use it. So really, honestly, it's a pretty good value. Custom furniture seems expensive up front, but you're getting great value. If you're building from someone who's using proper joinery, you're gonna have a lifetime guarantee. Plus, you're supporting someone who has passion about their craft and what they love to do. So the value in it is great. If you're interested in ordering it, hey, shoot me an email. I'd love to give you a quote on it. As always, I really appreciate y'all tuning in. If you wanna support the channel more, go on to Patreon, get some behind the scenes stuff, and we'll see you next time.